The Mysterious Old Radio Listening Society podcast. Welcome to the Mysterious Old Radio Listening Society, a podcast dedicated to suspense, crime, and horror stories from the golden age of radio. I'm Eric.
I'm Tim.
And I'm Joshua.
We love mysterious old-time radio stories, but do they stand the test of time? That's what we're here to find out.
Today, we return to the listener library for a recommendation from our mysterious listener, Sam.
Sam writes, a little while back, I requested that you do an episode covering Tanglefoot from Quiet Please. I've been racking my brain trying to figure out why you haven't featured it yet. And then it hit me. The reason you guys won't listen to Tanglefoot is because you're scared. I completely understand it's a very scary episode and it's not for the faint of heart. Perhaps you would rather feature an episode of Fibber McGee and Molly or The Cinnamon Bear.
Well, thank you for the intervention, Sam. You're right. It's time to confront our fears and listen to Tanglefoot.
Quiet Please was the brainchild of radio and screenwriter Willis Cooper, creator of another iconic radio series, Lights Out. Quiet Please debuted on the Mutual Broadcasting Network on June 8, 1947. In September 1948, the series switched to ABC and remained there until its final broadcast on June 25, 1949.
Every Quiet Please story was told in the first person by actor Ernest Chappell. Cooper's scripts utilized Chappell's everyman voice and natural gift for storytelling to create a sense of intimacy between performer and listener.
And now let's listen to Tanglefoot from Quiet Please. First broadcast June 4th, 1949.
It's late at night, and a chill has set in. You're alone, and the only light you see is coming from an antique radio. Listen to the sounds coming from the speaker, listen to the music, and listen to the voices.
Quiet, please. Quiet, please. The American Broadcasting Company presents Quiet, Please, which is written and directed by Willis Cooper, and which features Ernest Chappell. Quiet Please for tonight is called Tanglefoot. Back in the old days, when GI didn't mean general issue, it just meant galvanized iron, I used to be a plumber. There are no cracks about leaving tools in the shop when you go out on a job. Because if a plumber took along all the tools he's liable to need on a job he don't know nothing about till he gets there, he'd need one of those moving vans to tote him. Just the same, what you can do with a 14-inch Stilson wrench and a mitt full of opium, you'd be surprised at. This place where I work, well, you ever smell a plumbing shop? And I tell you what you smell. Opium first thing, like creosote. That's what you start with. Linseed oil, that's in the red lead you use on the joints and stuff. You smell a hot lead where the kids melting down scrap lead into little pigs you can put in your bag. Galvanized iron. Yeah, sure, you can smell galvanized iron. Go past the bins where they keep the L's and the T's and the street L's and the Cuplins and the Unions. All sizes and 40-teen sizes. You can smell galvanized iron, all right. Then there's the smell of rats that live back behind the bins. Gasoline burning in the blowtorches and the furnaces. And the thing I remember best of all, the smell of the flypaper. My heavens, there seems to be flypaper every place. I don't know, maybe in the old days there was more of it, or there was more flies or something. Seemed like every place you went, you run into flypaper. Remember that smell? Like varnish with sugar in it? Like taffy that got spoiled? Kind of a fascinating smell in a sicky way. Think about it and you kind of think, yeah, no wonder the flies liked this smell and went for it. Smell? Sure, flies can smell. They got smellers that'll make a bloodhound jealous if you notice. And flies got lots of things. They got a jillion eyes, 6 fancy legs, wings, and a trunk like an elephant. Only littler, proboscis they call it. Huh? Ah, not the flies. They can't talk. Boy, howdy if they could. I know a lot about flies. I'll tell you about it. I can see it today. There was people living upstairs above the plumbing shop where I worked. That was in the summer of 1915, I guess, quite a while ago. Their back porch hung over the back porch of the shop. Made kind of a shed where we used to thread pipe, melt up scrap lead, stuff like that. And Ricketts, the horse, he used to be tied up back there in the alley with a wagon. When he was working back there, it was quiet and shady and hot. All you could hear was Ricketts stamping his feet and switching his tail at the flies, and maybe the hoo of a gasoline furnace. Whoever he was working with talking kind of lazy and slow in the heat. Ah, boy, was it hot. I and Herbie, we was threading 3/4-inch black iron pipe.
Going for boat excursion tonight, Buck?
What boat excursion?
Crawfish Club. On the Percy Swing tonight.
No, I thought it was tomorrow.
No, tonight.
Yeah, that's good enough. Get another length of pipe.
Hot, ain't it?
Only one tonight, I think.
In the shade.
It's hot for old Ricketts out there in the sun.
His head's in the shade. What's he hollering about?
Flies, I guess.
You should put the fly netting on him.
Yeah.
Look out, don't step in the flypaper.
Flypaper every place. That Bert Kincaid, he's nuts about flypaper. Doggone stuff. It's all over the place.
That's where you're throwing it.
You thread up the pipe. I'll take care of the flypaper. You think with all that stuff around there wouldn't be so many flies?
Flies are smart.
How do you mean? Smart.
Not flypaper.
Flypaper's always full of them.
And them's the dumb flies. Smart ones look at it and smell it and fly away. Land on people, horses, take a bite. Live longer.
I wonder how long flies live.
I don't know.
Too long.
Any more lengths of pipe we ain't threaded?
Here. I wonder what flies think about.
Eating?
That's what I'm thinking about. What time is it?
Like that fancy new wristwatch of yours.
Busted.
That's pretty near noon.
Gonna go home, do you?
Want to go with me?
I wasn't hinting.
Heck, you wasn't.
Well,
No flies on you, Buck. Oh, Mom makes some ice cream she left for me.
your mom home?
No, she went up to Peoria's this morning. P.A. Bedner's got a sale or something.
Well, I could stop at Rulin's and get some boiled ham or something. We could make sandwiches.
Oh, we got some.
Oh, I could get something, though, eating off you. Or...
Yeah.
12 o'clock.
Up goes.
You ever hear anything sound so simple and easy and not meaning nothing? That don't mean anything? Yeah, you get it in a minute. You get a lot of stuff you don't expect. It all started that way, with threading pipe and kicking flypaper around and stuff. We ate up the ice cream at Herbie's house, sitting in the kitchen. It was kind of cool. And gosh, I hated to go back to work.
I hate to go back to, but I'd like to lay down and take a nap or something.
Yeah, Bert Kincaid, can you?
Yeah, wish that was a fly.
Yeah. Go bite Bert Kincaid.
But only thing that's wrong with him is he's a boss. Flies don't have bosses. Want some more ice cream?
Yeah, leave some for your mom.
No, she don't like ice cream. Don't you want some more?
Yeah, I'm full. Thanks.
We can set a couple minutes more. It's only 20 to 1.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking about flies. You crazy about flies today? Oh, I just got to thinking about it.
Hey, what became of your dog?
I got in the backyard. It's hot. I like to get under the coal shed to keep cool.
Maybe you handled that yourself.
Yes, I had a pet fly. You're crazy. I had a pet fly. Fastened the rope on him. Lead him around.
Well, these little bitsy rope you'd have to have.
Now, this would be a great big fly. Big as a dog.
What kind of a dog?
I like that old collie of Masterson.
A fly that big bite you, you'd be ruined.
Looking at a fly with a magnifying glass the other day.
I've seen one once.
Got the meanest looking faces I ever seen.
Great big eyes.
Chicken eyes. Look at you from all over. Always washing their faces like a cat.
They carry germs.
Oh, sure. Germs, though.
Gee. That big fly'd sure be something.
Sure be a swell tough.
If you could tame him.
Oh, I'd tame him all right.
Maybe the fly tamer.
Be as big and strong as a bull. Have to put a big chain on him.
He'd fly away with you.
Maybe I could train him to take me places. Fly, you know.
Yeah, you should think of the educated fly.
Flies are smart.
Flypaper catchers and good old Tanglefoot boy.
Well, if they have an awful big piece of Tanglefoot to catch this old boy. Ain't that much Tanglefoot in the
Well,
world.
ain't no fly like that in the world either.
Oh, boy, if there was.
Didn't you hear the whistle? Come on, 1:45.
Yeah. I know what you'd feed a fly that big.
Have to feed them people, I guess.
Come on, let's go.
I remember it was pretty near 3-4 months later. It was just getting kind of the first days of fall, and people were starting to burn dry leaves along the curbstone. Herbie and me was fixing a hot water heater for Frank and Edith Gibbons, the telegraph operator. Live out there where Washington runs into Court Street. Kind of cool that day, I remember. Mrs. Gibbons, she was jawing at us because she said we were so slow. She wanted that hot water heater fixed right this minute. She wanted to take a bath before the chicken pie supper at the Christian church. She had to put the icing yet on 2 devil's food cakes, and would we please hurry up? She was all of a tizzy. Well, finally Henry come with the reducer tea we was waiting for. Mrs. Gibbons, she went out to the kitchen to look at the cakes, and don't go banging things around and make my cakes fall, she said. I said, yes, ma'am, for about the 40th time, and she shut the door. I laid down my ball-peen hammer. I said, whew.
Me too.
Why can't women leave you alone?
Well, I get the union after her. She thinks she knows so much about plumbing.
No, at least it's cool.
What's the matter?
Yeah, I got my elbow in the flypaper. My heavens, what she still got flypaper around for?
Here, let me do it.
Oh, gotta take off the skin, too? Yeah, squirt me some gasoline on it. I got guck all over me. Ain't been any flies for 3 weeks. Any more gasoline?
I know where there's a fly.
Huh?
I know where there's a fly.
Well, why don't you swat him?
Well, 2 reasons. First, I kind of like this fly.
Like him?
Raised him from a pup.
Herbie.
Raised a fly from a pup? Second thing is, you want to swat this fly, you better have a baseball bat.
What?
This here fly is 8 inches long.
Huh?
Hand me the red lead.
How big?
Maybe 9. Where you going?
Miss Gibbons.
What are you calling her for?
Miss Gibbons, call up the asylum. Herbie Butterworth is seeing flies 9 inches long.
Here, under the coal shed. Come on, Teddy. Here, Teddy boy. Here, Teddy. Come on, Teddy. Come on out there, boy. Darn you, Teddy. Come on, Teddy. Here, boy. Good dog. Come on, Ted. Ted. You hear me? Come on out of there. Come on now. Dog. Ted. Come on, boy. Teddy.
He's asleep, maybe.
What, with me hollering that way?
Well, maybe he ain't there. Maybe he's out.
Two, I can see him. He's laying down in there. Here, Teddy. Here, Teddy.
Well, reach in and pull him out.
Come on, dog, come on. What?
Huh?
He's dead.
You ain't ever seen anything, I mean, that a fly killed. No, I don't mean kill by putting germs on him or like that. I mean, well, murdered by a fly.
This here fly is 8 inches long. Maybe 9.
This here fly killed Teddy, that was Herbie Butterworth's dog, that was a hound dog that weighed 42 pounds on John April's scales the day before. This here fly, he just up and killed poor old Teddy. But maybe Teddy was scared to death by the fly first. Because nobody in the whole great big wide world ever seen a fly that was 8, 9 inches long. Nobody but first Herbie and then Teddy. And afterwards, me.
I ain't found him yet.
Maybe he got froze to death.
Kind of scares me, Buck. Don't it you?
He comes after me, I'll bat him on the head.
He'll come flying up to you. Come flying up. You won't even see his wings. You know how a fly's wings is, you can see through them.
Maybe he's froze to death. Flies can't stand cold weather. They die.
They don't always die. Sometimes they go into, what is it, a coma? When they get warm, they come to again. And then they're hungry.
Well, I think he's dead. Because we ain't heard about anybody croaking, with a mystery. Not since Teddy. Hey, I can still see that dog.
Try not thinking about Teddy.
Maybe you ought to leave some flypaper around. Big hunks of flypaper.
I got flypaper all around the coal bin there where he was.
Heavy enough?
It don't have to be so heavy. He lands on a hunk of Tanglefoot. It'll get all stuck to the hair. And hair on his legs. Flies got hair on their legs.
Real hair?
More like bristles, like spikes, kind of. You get flypaper stuck in his legs, his wings. He ain't gonna go skittering around much.
Maybe he's dead.
Sure hope not.
Hope not?
Well, I kind of liked him. Till he ate up Teddy.
I'd be just as satisfied if I never get to see him. He must be quite a sight, though. Like looking at a fly through a magnifying glass.
Sure glad he only got to be 8, 9 inches long. Hate to lose him. I could put him in a circus or a sideshow or something. Make $1 jillion. Take him up to Chicago. People would come from miles around.
To a zoo, just about. A museum like that one. Where is it, New York?
Yeah, he was quite a thing. He used to eat mice. I went and caught mice and let him have them. I want to see what he'd do to a dead mouse.
Oh, thank you kindly. I seen what he'd done to Teddy. How'd you get him so big, Herbie?
Huh? Secret, Buck.
And so?
I bet if he'd lay an egg, the egg would be bigger. I mean, the pup would be bigger than he was.
Fly egg.
Bigger than a hen's egg it'd be. Bigger than maybe a turkey egg.
Maybe he's dead.
Yeah.
He comes after me, I'm going to shoot him, my old 12.
You couldn't hit a balloon with a bull fiddle.
You hit him all right. Hello, Louise.
How'd you do? Hey, who's that, Buck?
I don't know, just moved to town from someplace in Ohio, Iowa, someplace.
Louise.
Louise McKinney, something like that.
Where'd you know her?
Met her at Empire Hall, that dance the other night.
What dance? Social Athletic Club?
Uh-huh.
Well, night. See you at the shop in the morning.
So long. It's cold, ain't it?
Yeah, gonna snow. Feels like snow.
More busted water pipes.
Yeah. Well, so long, Buck. Say, that Louise, what's her name? That's something, ain't it?
Yeah, I feel like that there type.
I like it.
Say, Herbie.
What?
Listen.
What?
Listen, that great big fly of yours.
Yeah?
On the level now. Is there a great big fly?
Huh?
Couldn't you just be Well, I just thought about it all of a sudden. I never seen this here fly.
I mean, you think I'm just fooling?
I was wondering.
I was just making it up.
Was you?
No, I wasn't making it up.
I just wondered.
Listen, Buck, I never made that up. Listen, I wished I was. I wish I'd never started making flies grow big. I ought to have stopped when I got one this big.
I don't know whether to believe you or not.
Listen, Buck, when I think what that there fly... Remember way back last summer when we first talked about it? You said, what would you feed a great big fly?
Yeah.
Remember what you said?
What?
You said people. People, you said. That's what you'd feed them.
Oh, yeah.
Listen, Buck, he already had a dog. That we know about. What if he ain't dead by now in all this cold? He must be...
Must be what?
Hungry.
3rd of December, 1915. Yeah, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, the 3rd, the night Herbie and me talked like I told you. I remember because on the 7th, the Boy Scouts had a movie at the Capitol Theater. It used to be the Standard Theater. And there was a kid with a bugle blowing it out front. That was the 7th. That was the night Bert Kincaid phoned me up from the shop, and Mayor Watson came over from kind of next door and told me Bert was calling me. And I went over. Bert, he said, you and Herbie Butterworth go right away to these people, these McKinleys or McKinleys or McKinleys, whichever it was, because their friend or something was wrong with it, and they was hollering, they was freezing. And I should go right on over, and Herbie would meet me there. He was already on the way with the rickets and the wagon and the tools. So I said, all right, and I went home and put on my overshoes and my army sweater, and I went over there. See, the place is only 2 doors away from where Herbie lived, there by the Garfield School. And that's why he was there already, see? I never even bothered to knock on the door. I just went around to the cellar door with my Coleman lantern, and I come on down, and Herbie was there already sitting on the cellar steps, so I just about fell over him. And not looking very happy. Say, I said, I thought there was freezing to death here in this house with a busted furnace. It's not cold down here. It's warm, I said.
I fixed it.
Huh?
I fixed the furnace. The valve was corroded, and I put a new one on. I fired up. It's all right.
Well, what you sitting on the cellar stairs for, then, if it's all fixed? What you sitting around here for?
Well,
What are you looking so crabby about? Anybody ought to be crabby, it's me. I walked halfway across town. I'm about... What you so crabby about? Huh?
She's down here.
Who?
Louise, you know, the McKinley gal, or whatever her name is.
Where? Oh. That's why I ain't welcome two's company. Three's
Shut up.
Gonna make some time, huh?
Shut up. She'll hear you.
Where is she?
I went back there in the preserve closet.
What for? Going to bring you a jar of apple butter?
The old man makes elderberry wine. He got some bottles back there he bought from Ohio or Iowa or whatever it is. 3 years old.
I sure like elderberry wine.
I know it.
Well, I tell you, Herbie, I'm a good guy. I'm your friend, Herbie. Seeing you got everything fixed up, I'll beat it.
You don't have to go.
I never stood in the guy's way, Herbie. I'll go out into the cold and the snow.
Ain't no
I'll
snow.
go right home and read V.C. Allensworth's editorials in the Times, and I'll leave the coast clear for you.
You don't have to do that, Buck.
Just as soon as I have one drink of elderberry wine.
Knew there was a catch in it.
Now I'll go right away, honest, Herbie. Hey, you've been telling her about giant flies and things.
Cut it out.
That thing's dead.
I guess
If it ever was alive. You got the makings?
we got some tailor-made. Need those?
Yeah, much obliged. Ain't you smoking?
Nah.
What you doing, making that wine?
The old man probably hid it for herself.
You give her a good smacking if you find she's smoking. Probably give you a good smacking, too. Why'd you yell at her?
The folks will hear upstairs.
Louise.
Shut up. Hey, Louise, shut up, Buck.
Come on, let's go help her.
Nix.
Louise, you want some help?
Buck, the people will hear you.
In here? Hey, Louise. I thought maybe you needed some... Louise? Louise.
Buck, that?
Herbie.
What's the matter, Buck? Buck, what's that? Louise!
I could recognize her by her clothes. By her clothes, that's all. You never saw a person that let a fly... No, you never did. Herbie and I did. A big, not 8, 9 inches long now, down in a hot, stuffy cellar. 2 feet long. And fat and kind of logy it was, dopey, like after you had a big dinner. And Louise... Herbie, he fainted, and I... Back there by the furnace pipes. I could see them eyes. And Chilean eyes. And that trunk like elephant. It kind of buzzed and wiggled its eyes at me and rubbed its face with its... and paws like a cat washing its face after dinner. And I tried to holler, but all I could hear was this buzzing, that's all. And then it kind of stumbled out from the pipes and it jumped and it come right past my face and it flew kind of sagging, kind of out of the corner of my eye. I seen it. It flew right out into the furnace room and the furnace door was open and the fire... You don't want to hear anymore, huh? Well, there's only a little bit more. You've come this far with me, so... Well, they put us both, Herbie and me, in jail. They said we murdered Louise, but nobody could murder anybody like that. And there wasn't any other evidence, so... See, the fly was dead. Disappeared, and there wasn't anything to go on. So they had to let us go. That's pretty near the whole story. Ain't it, Herbie?
The egg?
Oh, sure, I pretty near forgot about that egg. And about the egg. Bigger than a hen's egg. Big's a turkey egg. Back there in the dark behind the pipes.
I didn't see it. Buck seen it.
But I never told anybody about it. Did I, Herbie? Nobody but you.
And when they left us out of jail, we come back here looking for it, but it was gone. There was kind of a scrunching back there, and we looked, and sure enough...
Larva. They call it in the books.
You know...
And we took it away with us. And sure enough,
this one grew bigger than its father, or its mother, or whatever it was.
And everyone since then has got a little bigger and a little hungrier. Is that so, Herbie?
Yep. Hungry all the time. Never let him out to hunt.
Wait. Look at him. Ain't he a dinger? First real live pet fly you ever seen. Here, Louise.
We call him Louise.
Look at them eyes. Jillions of them. Look. He unrolls his trunk. Ain't that cute? Nice, clean face. See the sharp bristles on his legs? Biggest fly in the world. Bigger than a collie.
Bigger than a Shetland pony, I bet.
And hungrier, too.
Come on, Louise. Wake up. He's awake, Buck.
Uh-huh. Okay, Herbie?
Okay.
Go on in. No, you I'm talking to.
You, he says. Go on in.
Go on in. Louise is hungry. That's it. What's the matter? Can't move your feet? Sure. You stuck in something? Used to call that stuff flypaper. We got a different name for it now. Yeah, no use trying to get loose. You're stuck for good. And Louise is hungry. Only hurt a minute, that's all. Careful, Louise, honey. Don't get your feet stuck in the man paper. Tanglefoot. It was written and directed by Willis Cooper, and the man who spoke to you was Ernest Chappell. And my friend Herbie was played by Jack Lescoulie. As usual, music for Quiet Please is by Albert Berman, and the sound by William J. McClintock. Now for a word about next week's Quiet Please, here is our writer-director, Willis Cooper. Okay, Bill?
Thank you for listening to Quiet Please. We've got a story for you next week. The strange title of The Hat and the Bed and John J. Catherine.
The Hat and the Bed and John J. Catherine. Next week. So till next week at the same time, I'm quietly yours, Ernest Chappell.
That was Tanglefoot from Quiet Please, here on the Mysterious Old Radio Listening Society podcast. Once again, I'm Eric.
I'm Tim.
And I'm Joshua.
And that was a listener request coming to us from our Patreon, Sam, who dared us to listen to Tanglefoot, who said we were terrified to listen to it. And now we have. So there, Sam. And thank you for being a Patreon. I got to start this conversation with this. There are certain frequencies and things in this world right now that are really hard on me to hear.
Because of actual hearing loss, not some emotional issue.
No, it's emotional.
I'm just feeling very old right now.
For some reason,
I have a hard time hearing things like feedback.
For some reason, I don't hear my wife anymore. She's on a frequency. So there are two versions of this online, and one of them is a noise reduction version, one isn't. I tried them both. I actually had to download this into my audio software editing program and go EQ all over the place, trying to figure out a sweet spot where I can understand what they were saying, right? And then I found out, it was good for a while, and then something would change. So I had to keep shifting the EQ, had my finger on just moving it around highs and lows so I could hear. It made it for very difficult listening for me. The reason I say it is just so you know, I made it through, but there may be some things I missed. So, what happened? No, I got the general gist.
I feel like it got better as it went.
Yeah.
I struggled some, and then either I just acclimated to it, or it in fact got easier to listen to.
The one we're listening to in this podcast, the one listeners have just heard, is the non-noise reduced version that is floating around there, because I think I would rather hear crackle and get more clarity in the voices than no background crackle and distorted voices. So I found that much easier to hear.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%.
Do either of you have much memory of flypapers being hung in places?
Yeah, I have a little bit of memory of it hanging from the ceiling and being told, this is interesting to bring this up, that was poison and it would kill me and to stay away from it. And finding out years later, that was just so I didn't touch the sticky stuff. But I remember being terrified.
At one point, flypaper did contain poison. You would have to consume a lot of it as a human being, but it might have been, depending on how old this person was, if it was a grandparent or something.
It was a grandparent that also told me that eating cookie dough would give me dough worms. So that I wouldn't eat cookie dough.
That's actually the sequel to Tanglefoot, is dough worms.
I was curious because I remember flypaper being in my grandparents' house, but even in this production, the notion of flypaper being a little old-fashioned, of like, do you remember flypaper? Do you?
Yeah, because the story itself takes place in 1915, and there's a horse. So I'm assuming this is horse and carriage type of transportation, and that is why flypaper was invented, as far as I know, because you had horses pooping all over the place, attracting the flies, and really it wasn't even until it was before this story, but they didn't even have screen windows at first, and there were just flies everywhere. So there was a big boom in flypaper until cars were invented, and then a lot of flypaper companies went out of business, literally because there was a drop in flies when there wasn't horse manure everywhere.
That is fascinating. Yeah. Thanks, Cliff. That is seriously, that is a fascinating piece of trivia. Did we discuss this any further? How do we, that's a high note.
But I mean, that's what I think Cooper was hearkening back to.
Yeah.
I mean, in the 1940s, he was probably at least in his 40s when he was writing this, so he was remembering his childhood.
And they were plumbers, right?
Yes, that much you heard correctly.
Well, what I'm getting at is that everything I say today is going to be right, because I don't want to, like, that's what I heard. But I was struck by 1915 plumbers. When, and I didn't look it up or anything because that would have required effort.
You were too busy on the EQ.
Right. But it was interesting to me because if you ask me point blank, when did indoor plumbing become so standardized in housing that plumbing became a profession? I would have guessed past 1915.
I would too, actually. I would think like 20s, 30s.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it existed in nicer houses.
I know it existed, but just as a...
as any given house you'd expect to have it.
Right, and as a profession that was mandatory. We need plumbers now.
They were dealing with furnaces, though, a lot, too. Not all just indoor plumbing in the story.
So when
Most
were
of what
furnaces invented?
This isn't the history podcast.
Well, back in 1915, they were burning horses to keep the houses warm.
Therefore, flies.
Yes, and lots of glue.
Right.
About the story, I do want to call out Cooper's amazing ability to start a script with a great opening line that hooks you in, that does multiple things at once. And that line here is back in the old days when GI didn't mean general issue, it meant galvanized iron. I used to be a plumber. Mm-hmm. So it sets this as a story being told in the post-war era about a pre-war era. It gives you a little hint of this guy's historical perspective and occupation, and gives you personality and information immediately. Yeah. I also love about that opening monologue is that radio doesn't usually attempt to use a sense of smell to create theater of the mind. And smell is a very powerful mnemonic device for remembering things and picturing things and taking you places. So I'm actually surprised it's not done more often.
Right.
And him going into this long list of the smells, the creosote or the oils, and that galvanized iron had a smell, and the great descriptions of the smell of flypaper.
Yep.
Varnish with sugar in it, like slightly off taffy. It was just really evocative. I could smell that. And then we go into this whole thing about the summer and the heat, and there are flies, and there's heat from the furnace where they're working. And it's oppressive about 5 or 6 minutes in, where I can feel all this in a really powerful way.
Whenever we talk about historically how things were, like you just described, or manure everywhere, and so there were flies, or how oppressive the heat was and how difficult it was, and there were no screen doors. Okay, so that's just this story. But anytime you go in the past and someone puts the truth to, well, this is what the Old West would have been like. This is what medieval Europe would have been like. When you get down to the non-romanticized movies of it, literally we were throwing poop out the windows, and every time, like just now, and I realized, I would be so miserable and I would die in the past quickly.
I love thinking about someone in the future looking back on us now, like, how did they manage?
I think about that too. Like, what is it that we're doing right now? And they're like, wow, that would have been so hard.
They didn't have AI. They had to do podcasts themselves. They would just sit for hours and talk into microphones until their throats were parched.
I think about smoking inside when we were growing up, and it was fine. That's what people did. And we look at it and go, wow, that's crazy.
Weird.
I wonder what weird thing we're doing right now that I sometimes think it's going to be the Christmas tree. They cut them, they brought them inside and put things on them. Why? I don't know. It was weird.
I heard someone on a podcast say that one of the things that will date science fiction terribly very soon is all the sci-fi stories that involve cracking down on space drugs. Right? Like the idea that at some point when drugs are, most of them, legal, which I think there will come a time.
Yeah, probably.
And people will be like, That was ridiculous that they assumed that they would still be fighting a drug war in the far-flung future.
That's interesting.
Because I laugh when I read 1950s sci-fi and they're still smoking cigarettes, right, in a rocket ship.
Right.
They've got like an ashtray on the cockpit.
My favorite old-time sci-fi stuff, though, is any B-movie where they take off and they're standing up or sitting in a recliner. Anyway, back to this. So explain to me one thing. This is something I did miss. How did he breed the fly? Did he say what he was feeding it or how he made the fly so big?
Very ambiguous.
Okay, so it was ambiguous. All right.
It's one of the things I really enjoy about this story is how ambiguous that is.
Yeah, it is a sort of natural gradation of he's telling a story about it and like it's a joke. It's a made-up story. And like, no, it seems more real. And it's not even he just springs them out of the blue. It's not clear how long he's been working on this big fly.
And then the other question I had is, am I correct that the Chapel character never did see the fly?
Not till the
Very
furnace.
end.
Did he see it at the end?
Yes.
Okay.
After it killed Louise.
Right. I didn't quite catch if he had seen the fly or not. So it left me with this interesting take on this story that I kind of like. I wish it was like this, that he never saw the fly. So maybe Herbie actually killed Louis. Like maybe the whole fly was made up. But no. So that's not a discussion. Now that we know he saw the fly.
It is interesting that this is.
I don't know why
heads
he saw
into
the fly.
I guess
he'll die.
This gets into a sort of horror we don't often get in radio at all, of just the grotesquerie. And strangely for me, it linked it to the Cronenberg version of the movie The Fly.
Yep.
Which I don't know if both of you seen that, which only enhanced it, made it even more disgusting for me. Of like, it's going to vomit on her. Oh, it's going to be really nasty.
Yes, they do leave a lot of how the fly kills its victims and eats them to your imagination. But since we are in the far-flung future, people like Cronenberg has supplied the imagery for us.
Thanks,
Right.
David Cronenberg.
Yeah.
Again.
I also want to point out how Cooper meanders through the beginning of this story, setting the tone, and then even acknowledging, and it's a very muddy part of the recording. I had to go back like 3 times. So if someone didn't catch it, that's why I want to underscore it. He gets to the point after he's described them working in the sun and talking about flies and deciding whether they want boiled ham or ice cream at his mom's house. And then it cuts back to Buck, the narrator, speaking to this unheard listener and says, "Did you ever hear something start so easy and simple and not meaning nothing?" So I thought it was great because just to the point where I was like, I wonder what's actually going to happen here.
Will something happen?
He acknowledged that, well, wait, this seems unimportant. And it's also why I enjoy that we don't get anything really specific about how the fly was developed.
Yeah.
We just know that there's a leap in time, and at some previous time, Herbie seemed really obsessed with flies.
And had an interest in, I want a big fly.
Yes, yes.
Right.
Ultimately, I think Cooper knows that any real explanation of how this fly became big is really meaningless. It's a bunch of hand-waving technobabble, right? Like, so why spend story time on it? He is more interested in setting the mood than going, there was a mad scientist with an enlarge ray, at which I might really...
how the fly got so big.
Might please Eric.
You saw my face. I wish the listener could see my face. My eyes got wide. I went, ooh, enlarge ray.
But again, it goes back to something a little more biological and visceral, where the horror comes from, that this guy somehow figured out how to just breed flies and keep getting them bigger and fatter naturally somehow. That's
It's just like, I want to find the biggest fly, and I've been looking for it. Okay, I've got a big fly. I want to find a bigger fly.
Yeah.
Now I found the biggest fly.
And then, introducing 2 big flies on a blind date.
Yeah, putting on some music. Strangers in the night.
Make a bigger fly.
For as restrained as we have often said Quiet Please is with their Foley, when they finally got to, we're going to make a big fly noise, That was really creepy.
Absolutely.
There's just so many great authenticating details throughout this. Just every time they go on a job, it was like Mrs. Jiminy or whoever who was like, I have to get to a chicken pie dinner at the Christian church, and I've got devil's food cake to, and he's making fun of her, and it just feels like homey and small town like and quaint. And then there's the giant fly murders, and it's just perfectly executed in that way.
Also say, I have threaded pipe previously in my life, so every time they were talking about threading pipe, I was excited. Like, I have threaded pipe. Let's thread some pipe. I'm not having the right reaction to this show. I clearly...
Let's thread some pipe. Well, what other thoughts do we have, gentlemen?
The very ending, the tone is so weird.
Yeah.
In contrast to the rest of the show. And it's not like it's not right. It's not appropriate, but it's just so weird and different. Including the sort of clownish giant man paper scenario of, did you need a sticky floor to catch somebody? There's two of you. You could have just hit me with a threaded pipe.
Right.
I like it metaphorically. It's just a weird tone shift.
Intellectually in the moment right now, I agree with you, but it just never struck me in the moment of listening to it. So Cooper got away with it. Even if I can't really argue with you as a tone shift, but I think if I were to defend it in the moment, I would say that it helps to create that feeling that they have become co-conspirators and that Buck, the narrator, has caught Herbie's obsession with all things flies and has this almost, again, I guess what you're pointing out, almost super villain obsession with flies now, like a Batman villain.
Yeah.
I am now the fly villain, so I'm going to have giant man-sized flypaper to catch people with. But I feel like it earns it even if it's sudden.
Yeah, it might, the metaphor carries. The mechanics are weird.
Right.
But I'm going to go back to my flypaper trivia. I was reading more about flypaper, and they just used to not be manufactured in bulk when it was first created. You just go to the drugstore, and they would literally make it up, some sheets of flypaper, which might make the man paper seem less absurd because they would just be making up their own homemade giant fly paper.
Like vats, and you just stick paper in it and take it home.
Well, it wouldn't have to be that huge. Now I'm really thinking about how big this flypaper would be to keep a man stuck to it.
Yep.
I also enjoyed the really uncomfortable scene where Buck is teasing Herbie about, he wants to be alone with the new girl in town, because it is so clear at that point that something horrible is about to happen, so that his teasing becomes ominous, and you're almost like, shut up and just go look for her.
Right.
She's being eaten by a fly. Then it's rubbing its face like a cat. For some reason, that was really disturbing, and it should be kind of cute.
There was references to how beautiful the fly was with all its eyes and everything. And that was coming from Chapel. Mm-hmm. Like the character had gotten on board with the fly infatuation.
Speaking of which, I thought that was a great, surprising twist moment when we first hear Herbie's voice present with Chapel as he's talking to this unheard person, that he's there that entire time. And that's where they're going full thing on the floorboard here.
Right.
This person is gonna die. And you identify with this person, obviously, as a listener. So it's a great trick. Yes, Cooper has used it before, because I think this was after Thing on the Floorboard. But also, in this time and place, radio was assumed to be pretty ephemeral. They broadcast it once, and that was last year. Who's going to remember that? No one has a recording of it. So if you had a really great story twist, why not reuse it again? There's no documentation of it.
Can't prove I've done this.
Right. That's an interesting thing to keep in mind, is the record of what we've done has drastically changed.
And the ability for fans to instantly catalog all the shows and share them online.
Spend their lives meticulously scrutinizing.
Well, should we vote?
Yeah, speaking of scrutinizing.
I'll start. Here's one thing that's important about Quiet Please for me. It doesn't matter which Quiet Please we listen to. I'm always enjoying it for one reason, and that is Cooper was absolutely right in his choice of plucking Chapel out of the thin blue,
announcer's chair.
out of the announcer's chair, and putting him in this role in that he's quite the genius in understanding Chapel's delivery, voice, and performance ability is just enthralling. It's so connecting. You just connect to him no matter what episode you're listening to. I want to hear his voice. So consequently, every Quiet Please has this. Yes, it was good, even if I hated it, because I could just listen to that guy tell a story. In the realm of, did I like this particular story as opposed to other Quiet Please stories? Here we go. Sam's going to be mad. It was fine. I didn't find it particularly scary. I'll tell you what's scary, Sam. Cinnamon Bear. For other reasons. But as you said, Joshua, the dialogue is evocative about smells and where we are, and everything is theater of the mind. It's all there. It's just, for me, flies. Yeah, flies. Hey, I made a big one. Now it's super big and it's killing someone, is just fine for a story. It's not that, oh, cool to me. It's, yeah, cool. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So I think it stands a test of time for sure. I think all Quiet Please does, but it doesn't take away from the fact that it doesn't matter because that guy can tell a great story, period. And that just has to be said, that I don't think there is a bad Quiet Please because of Chapel.
Yeah, the term world building is usually used in relation to science fiction and fantasy, but I think especially after hearing this, it struck me that it should be used more in the horror genre as well, because to Eric's point, I found the giant fly trope to be really creepy and disturbing here, and that is because it intrudes upon a world that feels very real and tangible and relatable. So I think it goes to Cooper's world building and his really relentlessly inventive way he approaches storytelling, even when he takes something that is a B-movie trope like giant killer insects. He usually finds a way to tell it in some very idiosyncratic or unconventional way that keeps the comforting, familiar quality to the trope, but makes it fresh again.
Exactly.
And that's what I really appreciate
I would
about
agree with
this.
that.
And so I think it's a classic for me because I've been listening to a lot of old-time radio over the last couple of years. Imagine that. And I am struck when I hear something that makes me think about radio storytelling in a different way, and particularly his use of smell in this and his use of the seasons passing to create this really, again, tangible sense of environment. It just made me think of new ways to create theater of the mind. So classic for me.
One, I compulsively, again, to bring back Cronenberg, at the end of this thought in my head in Jeff Goldblum's voice, sorry, that was gross. And then once I'd heard the whole thing, was thinking in terms of, if I had never heard any Quiet Please before, if I never knew any context and just heard this episode, it would blow my mind. The only thing that makes it sort of me not proselytizing about this is the fact that I've heard other Quiet Please that I know, like, there are many stories that are of this sort of quality of storytelling that is so revolutionary, continues to be revolutionary, and grounded and thoughtful. So I put it in that context and then get to the point of, like, well, the ending is a little bit different and it's by comparison, but I guess I would call it a classic too, because it's so big and weird
like a giant fly.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Yes.
And it's crawling around my head. And it's going to vomit on me. So, classic.
Thank you, Sam.
Tim, tell them stuff.
Please go visit ghoulishdelights.com. That is the home of this podcast. You can listen to other podcasts there our one podcast. We have the one podcast there. You can listen to other episodes of that podcast. You can leave comments.
Yeah, be really specific about that.
Yes. Again, angry emails. Where's my other podcast? It's coming. It might be coming. I don't know. You can leave comments. You can vote in polls. You can threaten us, challenge us to question our fortitude in listening to radio episodes. You can link to our social media pages. You can link to our Threadless store and buy swag, or you can link to Patreon.
Yes, go to patreon.com/themorals, where you will find our other podcast, one you have to pay for. But it's worth it. We have lots of spin-off old-time radio podcasts for patrons to listen to. We have Secrets of the Mysterious Old Radio, where we get into some of the weird stuff. We have... it's a secret. We do an semi-regular series called Cliffhangers of Doom, where we discuss serials. And then we also do B-sides of the Mysterious Old Radio, which is something connected to an episode of the main podcast in a sort of tangential way. In fact, gentlemen, we are going to be doing a B-sides to this episode of the podcast.
A
fly side, where we will be listening to episodes 1 and 2 of The Cinnamon Bear, inspired by Sam. So if you become a patron, you will find our discussion of Cinnamon Bear episode 1 and 2.
I'm so scared.
Thanks, Sam.
Hurrah!
If you'd like to see us performing live, you can do that by going to ghoulishdelights.com and seeing where we perform. We perform classic old radio dramas and recreate them, audio drama on stage, and frequently, we do a lot of our own original work as well. You can find out where the Mysterious Old Radio Listening Society Theater Company is performing audio drama every month by going to ghoulishdelights.com, and you'll find out where we're performing, what we're performing that month, and what day. And if you can't be there in person to see us, well, if you're a Patreon, you get to watch it because that's part of your deal. You get the video recording of it, right? Is that still a thing?
That's still a thing.
That's right.
Okay, just making sure. I just guessing. I don't really know what goes on.
It is part of your deal.
It's part of your deal. What's coming up next?
Next is your choice, speaking of not knowing what's going on.
Oh, right, because it's the holidays, and so we wanted to do something holiday Christmassy, and we're going to be listening to an episode of Suspense called Back for Christmas. Until then...
Look out!
Available now at patreon.com/themorals. B-sides of the Mysterious Old Radio, featuring The Cinnamon Bear Parts 1 and 2.
And here's the Cinnamon Bear.
Hey, you teddy bear. Oh, did you hear him, Judy? Did you hear him? He growled at me.
Oh my God, I want that 30 minutes back. You made the Superman serials look like a layered onion.
Well, that makes this embarrassing. I really loved it.
Did you?
This is so much fun.
We're going right down in Looking Glass Valley.
Yes, and I can see our reflection coming up to meet us. Whee!
Oh, gee.
Oh, Jimmy!
Hold tight.
Oh, my.
Here's another thing I didn't know. I had no idea you used to live in Portland.
I did for a couple of years as a small, impressionable Cinnamon Bear listening child.
This is all too much. I was going to discuss these 2 episodes of The Cinnamon Bear, and now it's going to take a while. You lived in Portland? How do I not know that about you? Why do you hide things from me?
Oh, Jimmy, you're only about 4 inches high. Really?
There. Now, the only thing you children have to do to be small is to see yourselves that way.
Go ask Judy when she's 4 inches small. And then they get in the Jefferson airplane. Wow!